Hey, Katie.
Oh no, I've still got that weird.
Why have you got Pemberley?
I didn't turn Pemberley off last time. I apologize for the hell that's happening in my face right now.
It's okay, it's only happening in your eyes.
No, now it's happening in your shoulder.
How about San Francisco? Is this better?
No.
Oh God,
Ah.
that's freaky.
How about grass? I am grass now.
You
Okay.
appear to have just frozen.
Oh.
Oh,
Now you're back.
Now you're back.
Hello! How are you guys doing?
Good. How are you?
Doing okay. My dad has been posting a lot of kind of racist stuff about migrants recently, so I sent him a message being like, hey, I don't want to argue with you, but I think it's important for you to know some things about migrants, and like gave him a lot of sources saying stuff about how the average asylum seeker or refugee gives back way more than they take financially, and that the average like migrant to the UK gives more than the average UK born person. And he saw it, this huge like message that I sent yesterday, and he hasn't said anything yet.
Which I still reckon is not necessarily a bad thing.
It's just so anxiety inducing.
Oh my god! Greetings.
Hi.
Hello.
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 Wait, is this the first day back for Katie and Nick? Oh, I didn't even know. Welcome back. We've been on catch up recently, so.
Oh, welcome back. Welcome back.
I'll get it out of the way now. I've actually been a bit gushy seeing the pictures that Marika took
Oh my god.
of you two. Like, they're really lovely.
Thank you.
My heart. My goddamn heart.
Ian's here.
Hi, Ian.
It's Ian here. Hi, Ian. Who else have we got? Hi, Evan.
Ian also has a very attractive profile picture at the moment.
Fucking yes.
Oh.
I don't know what to do with all these compliments.
I haven't seen it. What's it like?
It's
And he's
Ian being a best
punctual
person.
and
Very dapper.
very
Ooh. Sploosh.
It's Neville and Jen's wedding. I needed to look slightly less weird for job applications coming up.
Touch more professional.
It's a disappointment.
I'm excited to look at it.
You're going to gain some more
I
small
don't
cubes.
entirely know how to respond to that. Hopefully, I'm about to start teaching 3 days a week for Renfrewshire Council in schools.
Weren't you doing that already?
No. Sorry, Mum is also on the phone. I'm in the wrong room for this. I'm about to start doing that 3 days a week for Renfrewshire Council to cover for between the person who resigned and the person who is hired, and I'm also applying for the job. So
Exciting.
yeah, we live in hope. Thank you. Have you had your haircut again, Frankie?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Got rid of
Great.
some of the side nonsense. This is just getting more and more
Swingable.
goodness, what is that?
Boing.
Got ringlets.
Excellent bungles.
Katie and Nick, how was your trip?
We got to touch other humans.
Which is amazing. We got great
Jesus.
weather. We got to do some cycling and some walking and played a lot of croquet, which I've never played before,
Nick was very good at it.
but which is an amazing game.
Was it strip croquet or just normal croquet?
What the
You don't play strip croquet with your family.
Oh,
strip
that's true.
Can I ask, was Nick very like polite and courteous and stuff in the first game, and then became increasingly like passive aggressive?
No,
Like,
he
I love
started
that
mean.
croquet is about sabotaging the shit out of everyone else.
He started mean and continued mean.
Nice, excellent.
Going back to strip croquet,
Croquet.
let's do that.
Croquet.
It's from Heather's, right? Is it in Heather's that they play strip croquet? Yeah.
Called
Yeah.
Croquet.
What's that, love?
Called Strokey, and it shall always be called Strokey.
Are we calling it stroke?
No,
Is that
absolutely
really what we're going for? Also, can I say, Rory, I really like that top / is it dungarees over a white t-shirt? This
Yeah.
like this kind of diagonal bisection that you have happening.
Yeah, you're a diagonal bisection.
I'll
I'd like
buy-
to diagonally bisect
diagonally.
you.
Yeah. The point is, you look excellent. That's a really good outfit.
I was going to go for you can diagonally bisect me, but Katie, yours was also great.
I think
I
that's
really appreciate
also the one I went for. We're all so in sync. We're all so in sync, you dirty bastards.
Bastards.
Dirty bastards. Mm. Mm. So I have a small life update. I went into the office for a meeting today and sort of found out a little bit about what my immediate future is going to entail. So I am going to remain furloughed until November, which is nice. And then probably from November till March at least, I'm going to be back on 1 day a week, which is going to be a little bit less nice potentially, but at least I know now, so I feel good about having like some more information about what is happening. So there you go. That's what's happened to me today, and I've
What
nearly
happened?
finished it. What's my love?
What happens at a meeting of secret international ninja assassins?
We all draw straws, and one of us gets killed at the end.
I'm glad it wasn't
Congratulations
you.
on not getting killed today.
Thanks, guys.
It's a job where you really want the furlough.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Although, yeah. No, I was just thinking about like getting called in for disciplinary in like a ninja workplace. They're like, we haven't seen you in the office lately. I'm like, well, give me a
Yeah,
raise.
yeah. Promotion.
Yeah, exactly.
There's
What is that?
definitely a bit in that in one of the other Terry Pratchett stories.
Oh yeah, that's ringing some kind of bell.
It's veterinary when he's having his assassin's training. He fails at stealth and detection exam because the examiner didn't see him turn up.
Question: which would you rather, Vimes or veterinary?
Vimes.
In what context?
He's got very sensitive feet.
Oh my God, Kitty! Remember when we just learned so much about you? That's amazing, and also you're so right.
I will say though, like having not read any Pratchett, there's a reason that Vimes is quoted all over the internet.
Because he's sexy as fuck.
It's words, man.
Mm-hmm. Well, I've got a treat for you in this chapter.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, one, how are we doing for time? And two, Nick and Katie, do you need a scratch up?
It's story time. Let's go.
Let's go. Wow, I like it. I like this spirit. Yeah, fuck yeah, let's do it. So this This is going to be a good one. And again, I know I say this every time, but this really is going to be a good one. Now, oh my God, it's so nice. It's so nice to have you back. We said multiple times on various different sessions how weird it was not having you here. It's nice that Storytime feels complete again now that you are back.
Lots of people asked me how my life was, and I was like, well, I've got Storytime. Storytime's great. Most of the other things are shit.
Right. Storytime. Who's messaging me? Go away. It's Storytime. Don't you know this? Right. Now. Okay. Stop smiling. Get in character. Are you sitting comfortably? Then I'll begin. There was an old, very old Borogravian song with more Zs and Vs in it than any lowlander could pronounce. It was called Plonviesh. It meant, the sun has risen, let's make war. You needed a special kind of history to get all that in one word. Sam Vimes sighed. The little countries here fought because of the river, because of idiot treaties, because of royal rows, but mostly they fought because they had always fought. They made war, in fact, because the sun came up. This war had tied itself in a knot. Downriver, the valley narrowed to a canyon before the neck plunged over a waterfall 1/4 of a mile high. Anyone trying to get up through the jagged mountains there would find themselves in a world of gorges, knife-edged ridges, permanent ice, and even more permanent death. Anyone trying to cross the neck into Slovenia now would be butchered on the shore. The only way out of the valley was back along the neck, which would put an army under the shadow of the keep. That had been fine when the keep was in Borogravian hands. Now that it had been captured, they'd be passing in range of their own weapons. And such weapons. Vimes had seen catapults that would throw a stone ball 3 miles. When it landed, it would crack into needle-sharp shards. Or there was the other machine that sent 6-foot steel discs skimming through the air. Once they'd hit the ground and leapt up again, they were unreliable as hell, but that only made them more terrifying. Vimes had been told that the edged disc would probably keep going for several hundred yards, no matter how many men or horses it encountered on the way. And they were only the latest ideas. There were plenty of conventional weapons, if by that you meant giant bows, catapults, and mangonels that hurled balls of amphibian fire which clung while it burned. From up here in his drafty tower, he could see the fires of the dug-in army all across the plain. They couldn't retreat, and the Alliance, if that's what you could call the petulant hubbub, didn't dare head up the valley into the heart of the country with that army at their back, yet didn't have enough men to hold the keep and corral the enemy. And in a few weeks it would start to snow. The passes would fill up. Nothing would be able to get through. And every day, thousands of men and horses would need feeding. Of course, the men could eventually eat the horses, thus settling 2 feeding problems at a stroke. After that, there would have to be the good old leg rotor, which Vimes understood was one of the friendlier Zabenians was a common feature of winter warfare up here. Since he was Captain Hop-Along Splatzer, Vimes believed him. And then it would rain, and the rain and the snow melt together would turn the damn river into a flood. But before that, the Alliance would have bickered itself apart and gone home. All the Borogravians had to do, in fact, was hold their ground to score a draw. He swore under his breath. Prince Heinrich had inherited the throne in a country where the chief export was a kind of hand-painted wooden clog. But in 10 years, he vowed, his capital city of Riga would be the Ankh-Morpork of the mountains. For some reason, he thought Ankh-Morpork would be pleased about this. He was anxious, he said, to learn the Ankh-Morpork way of doing things, the kind of innocent ambition that could well lead an aspiring ruler to, well, find out the Ankh-Morpork way of doing things. Heinrich had a reputation locally for cunning, but Ankh-Morpork had overtaken cunning 1,000 years ago, had sped past devious, had left artful far behind, and had now, by a roundabout route, arrived at straightforward. Vimes leafed through the papers on his desk and looked up when he heard a shrill, harsh cry outside. A buzzard came in a long, shallow swoop through the open window and alighted on a makeshift perch at the far end of the room. Vimes strolled over as the little figure on the bird's back raised his flying goggles. "How's it going, Buggy?" he said. "They're getting suspicious, Mr. Vimes. And Sergeant Aggie says it's getting a bit risky now they're so close." "Tell her to come in then." "Right, sir. And they still need coffee." "Oh, damn. Haven't they found any?" "No, sir. And it's getting tricky with a vampire." "Well, if they're suspicious now, then they'll be certain if we drop a flask of coffee on them." "Sergeant Angus says we'll probably get away with it, sir. She didn't say why." The gnome looked expectantly at Vimes. So did his buzzard. "They've come a long way, sir, for a bunch of girls. Well, mostly girls." Vimes reached out absent-mindedly to pet the bird. "Don't, sir. She'll have your thumb off," Buggy yelled. There was a knock on the door and Reg came in with a tray of raw meat. "Saw Buggy overhead, so I thought I'd nip down to the kitchen, sir." "Well done, Reg. Don't they ask you why you want raw meat?" "Yes, sir. I tell them you eat it, sir." Vimes paused before answering. Reg meant well, after all. "Well, probably can't do my reputation any harm," he said. "By the way, what was going down in the crypt?" "Oh, they're not what I'd call proper zombies, sir," said Reg, selecting a piece of meat and dangling it in front of Morag. "More like dead men walking." Yes," said Vimes. "I mean, there's no real thinking going on," the zombie continued, picking up another lump of raw rabbit. "No embracing the opportunities of a life beyond the grave, sir. They're just a lot of old memories on legs. That sort of thing gives zombies a bad name, Mr. Vimes. It makes me so angry." Morag tried to snap at another lump of bloody rabbit fur that Reg, oblivious for the moment, was waving aimlessly. Reg," said Buggy. "How hard can it be, sir, to move with the times? Now, take me, for example. One day, I woke up dead. Did I—" "Reg," Vimes warned, as Morag's head bobbed back and forth. "Take it lying down? No. And I didn't—" "Reg, be careful. She's just had 2 of your fingers off." "What? Oh." Reg held up a denuded hand and stared at it. "Oh, now, will you look at that?" He peered down at the floor with a hope that was quickly dashed. "Blast! Any chance we can make her throw up?" "Only by sticking your fingers down her throat, Reg. Sorry. Buggy, do the best you can, please. And you, Reg, go back downstairs and see if they've got any coffee, will you?" "Oh dear," murmured Shufty. "It's big," said Tonka. Blouse said nothing. "Not seen it before, sir," said Jackram cheerfully, as they stared at the distant keep from where they lay in some bushes half a mile away. If there is a fairy tale scale for castles, where the top end is occupied by those white, spire-encrusted castles with the blue pointy roofs, then Neck Keep was low, black, and clung to its outcrop like a storm cloud. A bed of the neck ran round it. Along the peninsula on which it was built, the approach road was wide and bereft of cover, and an ideal stroll for those who were tired of life. Blouse took all this in. "No, Sergeant," he said. "I've seen pictures, of course, but they don't do it justice." "Any of them books you read tell you what to do, sir?" said Jackram. They were lying in some bushes half a mile away. "Possibly, Sergeant. In The Craft of War, Song Sung Lo said, 'To win without fighting is the greatest victory.' The enemy wishes us to attack where he is strongest. Therefore, we will disappoint him. A way will present itself, Sergeant. Well, it's never presented itself to me, and I've been here dozens of times, said Jackram, still grinning. Ha! Even the rats would have to disguise themselves as washerwomen to get in that place. Even if you get up that road, you've got narrow entrances, holes in the ceiling to pour hot oil through, gates everywhere that a troll could smash through, a couple of mazes, 100 little ways you can be shot at. Oh, it's a wonderful place to attack. I wonder how the Alliance got in, said Blouse. Treachery, probably, sir. The world's full of traitors. Or perhaps they discovered the secret entrance, sir. You know, sir, the one you're sure is there? Or perhaps you've forgotten. It's the sort of thing that can slip your mind when you're busy, I expect. We should reconnoitre, Sergeant, said Blouse coldly as they crawled out of the bushes. He brushed leaves off his uniform. Thalasephalos, or as Blouse referred to her, the faithful steed, had been turned loose miles back. You couldn't sneak on horseback, and as Jackram had pointed out, the creature was too skinny for anyone to want to eat and too vicious for anyone to want to ride. Right, sir, yes, we might as well do that, sir, said Jackram now, all gloating helpfulness. Where would you like us to reconnoitre, sir? There must be a secret entrance, Sergeant. No one would build a place like that with only one entrance. Agreed? Yes, sir. Only perhaps they kept it a secret, sir. Only trying to help, sir. They turned at the sound of urgent praying. Wazza had fallen to her knees, hands clasped together. The rest of the squad edged away slowly. Piety is a wonderful thing. What is he doing, Sergeant? Said Blouse. Praying, sir, said Jackram. I've noticed he does it a lot. Is that within regulations, Sergeant? The lieutenant whispered. Always a difficult one, sir, that one, said Jackram. I have myself prayed many times on the field of battle. Many times have I said the soldier's prayer, sir, and I don't mind admitting it. I don't think I know that one, said Blouse. Oh, I reckon the words will come to you soon enough, sir, once you're up against the foe. Generally, though, they're on the lines of, oh God, let me kill this bastard before he kills me. Jackram grinned at Blouse's expression. That's what I call the authorised version, sir. Yes, Sergeant, but where would we be if we all prayed all the time, said the lieutenant. In heaven, sir, sitting at Nuggen's right hand, said Jackram promptly. That's what I was taught as a little nipper, sir. Of course, it'd be a bit crowded, so it's just as well we don't. At which point, Wazza stopped praying and stood up, brushing dust off her knees. She gave the squad her bright, worrying smile. The Duchess will guide our steps, she said. Oh, good, said Blouse weakly. She will show us the way. Wonderful. Did she mention a map reference at all? Said the lieutenant. She will give us eyes that we might see. Ah, good. Well, jolly good, said Blouse. I definitely feel a lot better for knowing that. Don't you, Sergeant? Yes, sir, said Jackram. Because before this, sir, we didn't have a prayer. They scouted in threes while the rest of the squad lay up in a deep hollow among the bushes. There were enemy patrols, but it's not hard to avoid half a dozen men who stick to the tracks and aren't being careful not to make a noise. The troops was Labenian and acted as though they owned the place. For some reason, Polly ended up patrolling with Maledict and Wazza, or, to put it another way, a vampire on the edge and a girl who was possibly so far over it that she'd found a new edge out beyond the horizon. She was changing every day, that was a fact. On the day they'd all joined up a lifetime ago, she'd been this shivering little waif who'd flinched at shadows. Now, sometimes, she seemed taller, full of some ethereal certainty, and shadows fled before her. Well, not in actual fact, Polly would admit, but she walked as if they should. And then there had been the miracle of the turkey. That was hard to explain. The three of them had been moving along the cliffs. They'd circled a couple of Slabenian outlook posts, forewarned by the smell of cooking fires, but alas, not by the smell of any coffee. Maledict seemed to be mostly in control, except for a tendency to mutter to himself in letters and numbers, but Polly had stopped that by threatening to hit him with a stick the very next time he did it. They'd reached a cliff edge that gave yet another view of the keep, and once again Polly raised the telescope and scanned the sheer walls and jumbled rocks for any sign of another entrance. "Look down at the river," said Wazza. The circle of view blurred upwards as Polly shifted the scope. When it stopped moving, she saw whiteness. She had to lower the instrument to see what she'd been looking at. "Oh my," she said. "Makes sense, though," said Maledict. "And there's a path all along the river, see? There's a couple more women on it." "Tiny gateway, though," said Polly. "And it'd be so easy to search people for weapons." Soldiers couldn't get through them, said the vampire. "We could," said Polly. "And we're soldiers, aren't we?" There was a pause before Maledict said, "Soldiers need weapons. Swords and crossbows get noticed." "There will be weapons inside," said Wazza. "The Duchess has told me. The castle is full of weapons." "Did she tell you how to make the enemy let go of them?" said Maledict. All right, said Polly quickly. "We ought to tell Rupert as soon as possible, okay? Let's get back." "Hold on, I'm the corporal," said Maledict. "Well," said Polly, "and?" "Let's get back," said Maledict. "Good idea." She should have listened to the bird song, she realised later. The shrill calls in the distance would have told her the news if only she'd been calm enough to listen. They hadn't gone more than 30 yards before they saw the soldier. Someone in the Slabenian army was dangerously clever. He'd realised that the way to spot interlopers was not to march noisily along the beaten paths, but to sneak quietly between the trees. The soldier had a crossbow. It was sheer luck, probably sheer luck, that he was looking the other way when Polly came round a holly bush. She flung herself behind a tree and gestured madly at Maledict further down the path, who had the sense to take cover. Polly drew her sword and held it clutched to her chest in both hands. She could hear the man. He was some way away, but he was moving towards her. Probably the little lookout they had just found was a regular point on the patrol route. After all, she thought bitterly, it was just the sort of thing some untrained idiots might come across. Maybe a quiet patrol could even surprise them there. She shut her eyes and tried to breathe normally. This was it. This was where she found out. What to remember. When the metal meets the meat, beholding the metal. She could taste metal in her mouth. The man would walk right past her. He'd be alert, but not that alert. A slash would be better than a stab. Yes, a good swipe at head height would kill some mother's son, some sister's brother, some lad who'd followed the drum for a shilling in his first new suit. If only she'd been trained, if only she'd had a few weeks stabbing straw men until she could believe that all men were made of straw. She froze. Down the angle of the path, still as a tree, head bowed, stood Wazza. As soon as the scout reached Polly's tree, she'd be seen. She'd have to do it now. Perhaps that's why men did it. You didn't do it to save duchesses or countries. You killed the enemy to stop him killing your mates, that they in turn might save you. She could hear the cautious tread close to that tree. She raised the sabre, saw the light flash along its edge. A wild turkey rose from the scrub on the other side of the path in one rocketing tower of wings and feathers and echoing noise. Half flying, half running, it bounded off into the woods. There was the thud of a bow and a last squawk. "Oh, good shot, Woody," said a voice nearby. "Looks like a big un." "Did you see that?" said another voice. "Another step and I'd have tripped over it." Behind her tree, Polly breathed out. A third voice some way off called out, "Let's head back, Corp. The way that went off, the tiger's probably run a mile." "Yeah, and I'm so scared," said the closest voice. "The tiger's behind every tree, right?" "Okay, let's call it a day. My wife will cook him a treat." Gradually, the voices of the soldiers got lost among the trees. Polly lowered the sword. She saw Maledict peer out of his bush and stare at her. She raised a finger to her lips. He nodded. She waited until the birdsong had settled down a little before stepping out. Wazza seemed to be lost in thought. Polly took her very carefully by the hand. Quietly, dodging from tree to tree, they headed back to the hollow. Most particularly, Polly and Maledict didn't talk, but they looked one another in the eye once or twice. Of course, a turkey would lie low until a hunter almost trod on it. Of course, that one must have been there all the time and only lost its bird nerve when the scout crept up. It had been an unusually large bird, one that no hungry soldier could resist, but, well, because the brain treacherously does not stop thinking just because you want it to, Polly's added, "She said the Duchess could move small things. How small is a thought in the mind of a bird?" Only Jade and Eagerina were waiting for them in the hollow. The others had found a better base a mile away, they said. "We found the secret entrance," said Polly quietly as they headed away. "Can we get in?" said Eagerina. "It's the washerwoman's entrance," said Maledict. "It's right down by the river, but there's a path." "Washerwomen?" said Eagerina. "But this is a war." "Clothes still get dirty, I suppose," said Polly. "Dirtier, I should think," said Maledict. "But our countrywomen washing clothes for the enemy?" said Eagerina, looking shocked. "If it's that or starve, yes," said Polly. "I saw a woman come out carrying a basket of loaves. They say the keep is full of granaries. Anyway, you sewed up an enemy officer, didn't you?" "That's different," said Eagerina. "We are duty-bound to save our fellow person. Nothing has ever been said about their underwear." "We could get in," said Polly, "if we disguised ourselves as women." Silence greeted this. Then, "Disguised?" said Eagerina. "You know what I mean," said Polly. "As washerwomen?" said Eagerina. "These are virgins' hands." "Really? Where did you get them?" said Maledict. Eagerina stuck out her tongue at him. "Anyway, I don't intend that we should do any washing," said Polly. "Then what do you intend?" said Eagerina. Polly hesitated. "I want to get my brother out if he's in there," she said. "And if we could stop the invasion, that would be a good idea." "That might take extra starch," said Maledict. "I don't want to, spoil the spirit of the moment, but that is a really awful idea. The LT won't agree to something as wild as that." "No, he won't," said Polly. "But he'll suggest it." Said Blouse a little later. "Washerwomen? Is that usual, Sergeant Jackram?" "Oh, yes, sir. I expect the women in the villages around here do it just like they did when we held the keep," said Jackram. "You mean they give aid and comfort to the enemy? Why?" "Better than starving, sir. Fact of life. Doesn't always stop at washing, neither." Sergeant, there are young men here, snapped Blouse, blushing. They'll have to find out about ironing and darning sooner or later, sir, said Jackram, grinning. Blouse opened his mouth. Blouse shut his mouth. Tea's up, sir, said Polly. Tea was an amazingly useful thing. It gave you an excuse to talk to anyone. They were in what remained of a half-ruined farmhouse. By the look of it, not even patrols bothered to come here. There were no signs of former fires or even the most temporary occupation. It stank of decay and half the roof was gone. Do the women just come and go, Perks? Said the lieutenant. Yes, sir, said Polly. And I had an idea, sir. Permission to tell you my idea, sir? She saw Jackram raise an eyebrow. She was laying it on thick, she had to admit, but time was pressing. Please do, Perks, said Blouse, else I fear you may explode. They could be spies for us, sir. We could even get them to open the gates for us. Well done, Private, said Blouse. I do like a soldier to think. Yeah, right, growled Jackram. Any sharper and he'll cut himself. Sir, they're washerwomen, sir, basically. No offence to young Perks, keen lad that he is, but your average guard pays attention when old Mother Riley tries to open the gates. There's not just a pair of gates neither, there's 6 pairs, and nice little courtyards between them for the guards to have a squint at you to see if you was a wrong un, and drawbridges and spiky ceilings that drop down if someone doesn't like the look of you. Try opening that lot with soapy hands. I'm afraid the sergeant has a point, Perks, said Blouse sadly. Well, supposing a couple of women managed to knock out a few guards, sir, they could let us in through their little door, said Polly. We might even be able to capture the commander of the fort, sir. I bet there's plenty of women in the keep, sir, in the kitchens and so on. They could open doors for us. Oh, come on, Perks, Jackram began. No, Sergeant, wait, said Blouse. Astonishingly enough, Perks, in your boyish enthusiasm you have, although you haven't realised it, given me a very interesting idea. Have I, sir? Said Polly, who in her boyish enthusiasm had considered trying to tattoo the idea on Blouse's head. For someone so clever, he really was slow. Indeed you have, Perks, said Blouse, because, of course, we only need one washerwoman to get us inside, do we not? The inverted commas sounded promising. Well, yes, sir, said Polly. And if one, as it were, thinks outside the box, the woman does not, in fact, need to be a woman. Blouse beamed. Polly allowed her brow to wrinkle in honest puzzlement. Doesn't she, sir? She said. I don't think I quite understand, sir. I am perplexed, sir. She could be a man, Perks, said Blouse, almost exploding with delight. One of us, in disguise. Polly breathed a sigh of relief. Sergeant Jackram laughed. Lord bless you, sir, dressing up as washerwomen is for getting out of places. Military rules. If a man gets inside, he could disable any guards near the door, spy out the situation from a military perspective, and let the rest of the troops in, said Blouse. If this was done at night, men, we could be holding key positions by the morning. But these aren't men, sir, said Jackram. Polly turned. The sergeant was looking right at her, right through her. Oh, damn. He knows. I beg your pardon? They are my little lads, sir, said Jackram, winking at Polly. Keen lads, full of mustard, but they ain't ones for cutting throats and stabbing hearts. They signed up to be pikemen in the press, sir, in a proper army. You are my little lads, I says to them when they signed them up, and I will look after you. I can't stand by and let you take them to certain death. It's my decision to make, Sergeant, said Blouse. We are at the hinge of destiny. who in the pinch is not ready to lay down his life for his country. In a proper stand-up fight, sir, not getting beaten over the head by a bunch of nasty men for creeping around their fort. You know I've never been one for spies and hiding your colours, sir, never. Sergeant, we have no choice. We must take advantage of the tide of fortune. I know about tides, sir. They leave little fish gasping. The sergeant stood up, fists clenching. Your concern for your men does you credit, Sergeant, but it falls to us. A famous last stand, sir, said Jackram. He spat expertly into the fire in the tumble-down hearth. To hell with them, sir. That's just a way of dying famous. Sergeant, your insubordination is getting... I'll go, said Polly quietly. Both men stopped, turned, and stared. I'll go, Polly repeated, louder. Someone ought to. Don't be daft, Perks, snapped Jackram. You don't know what's in there. You don't know what guards are waiting just inside the door. You don't know... I'll find out then, Sarge, won't I? Said Polly, smiling desperately. Maybe I can get to somewhere where you can see and send signals, or... On this issue, at least, the sergeant and I are on one mind, Perks, said Blouse. Really, Private, it simply would not work. Oh, you're brave, certainly, but what makes you think you stand a chance of passing yourself off as a woman? Well, sir... What? Your keenness will not go unrecorded, Perks, said Blouse, smiling. But, you know, a good officer keeps his eye on his men, and I have to say that I've noticed in all of you, little habits, perfectly normal, nothing to worry about, like the occasional deep exploration of a nostril, maybe, and a tendency to grin after passing wind, a natural boyish inclination to scratch your selves in public, that sort of thing. These are the kind of little details that would give you away in a trice and tell any observer that you were a man in woman's clothing, believe me. I'm sure I could pull it off, sir, said Polly weakly. She could sense Jackram's eyes on her. You bloody well know, don't you? How long have you known? Blouse shook his head. No, they would see through you in a flash. You are a fine bunch of lads, but there is only one man here who'd stand a chance of getting away with it. Manacle? Yes, sir, said Shufty, rigid with instant panic. Can you find me a dress, do you think? Maledict was the first to break the silence. Sir, are you telling us you're going to try to get in dressed as a woman? Well, I'm clearly the only one who's had any practice, said Blouse, rubbing his hands together. At my old school, we were in and out of skirts all the time. He looked around at the circle of absolutely expressionless faces. Theatricals, you see, he said brightly. No girls at our boarding school, of course. But we didn't let that stop us. Why, my Lady Sprightly in a comedy of cuckolds is still talked about, I believe. And as for my yum-yum, is Sergeant Jackram all right? The sergeant had folded up, but with his face level with his knees... God damn it. With his face level with his knees, he managed to croak, Old war wound, sir. Come upon me sudden, like... Please help him, Private Igor. Where was I? I can see you all look puzzled, but there's nothing strange about this. Fine old tradition, men dressing up as girls. In the sixth form, the chaps used to do it for a jape all the time. He paused for a moment and added thoughtfully, especially Wrigglesworth for some reason. He shook his head as if dislodging a thought and went on. Anyway, I have some experience in this field, do you see? And what would you do if, when you got in, sir, said Polly. You won't just have to fool the guards. There'll be other women in there. That will not present a problem, Perks, said Blouse. I shall act in a feminine way, and I have this stage trick, do you see, where I make my voice sound quite high-pitched, like this. The falsetto could have scratched glass. See, he said. No, if we need a woman, I'm your man. Amazing, sir, said Maledict. For a moment, I could have sworn there was a woman in the room. And I could certainly find out if there are any other badly guarded entrances, Blouse went on. Who knows, I might even be able to procure a key off one of the guards by means of feminine wiles. In any case, if things are all clear, I shall send a signal. A towel hanging from a window, perhaps. Something clearly unusual, anyway. There was some more silence. Several of the squad were staring at the ceiling. Yes, said Polly. I can see you've thought this out carefully, sir. Blouse sighed. If only Wrigglesworth were here, he said. Why, sir? Amazingly clever chap at laying his hands on a dress, young Wrigglesworth, said the lieutenant. Polly caught Maledict's eye. The vampire made a face and shrugged. Said Shufti. Yes, Manacle? I do have a petticoat in my pack, sir. Good heavens, why? Shufti went red. She hadn't worked out an answer. Bandages, fur, Igorina cut in smoothly. Yes, that's right, said Shufti. I found it at the inn, back in Plume. I asked the lads to acquire any suitable linen they might find, sir, just in case. Very sound thinking, that man, said Blouse. Anyone else got anything? I wouldn't be at all surprised, sir, said Igorina, staring around the room. Glances were exchanged. Packs were unslung. Everyone except Polly and Maledict had something, produced with downcast eyes. A shift, a petticoat, and, in most cases, a dimity scarf, carried out of some sort of residual, unexplainable need. You obviously must have thought we'd take serious damage, said Blouse. Can't be too careful, sir, said Igorina. She grinned at Polly. Of course, I have rather short hair at present, Blouse mused. Polly thought of her ringlets, now lost and probably stroked by Strappy. But desperation spooled through her memory. They looked like older women, mostly, she said quickly. They wore headscarves and wimples. I'm sure Igor can make up something, sir. We Igors are very revoltful, sir, Igorina agreed. She pulled a black leather wallet out of her jacket. 10 minutes with a needle, sir, that's all I need. Oh, I can do old women wonderfully well, said Blouse. With a speed that made Lofty jump, he suddenly thrust out both hands twisted like claws, contorted his face into an expression of mad imbecility, and screeched, Oh, dearie me! My poor old feet! Things today aren't what they used to be! Lorks! Behind him, Sergeant Jackram put his head in his hands. Amazing, sir, said Maledict. I've never seen a transformation like it. Perhaps just a wee bit less old, sir, Polly suggested, although in truth Blouse had reminded her of her Auntie Hattie 2/3 of the way through a glass of sherry. You think so? Said Blouse. Oh, well, if you're really sure. And if you do meet a guard, old women don't usually try to canoodle, whispered Maledict, whose mind had clearly been hurtling down the same horrible slope. Canoodle with them, Polly finished, blushing, and then after a second's thought added, unless she had a glass of sherry anyway. And I do suggest you go and have a shave, sir. Shave, said Blouse. Shave, sir, said Polly. I'll lay out the kit, sir. Oh, yes, of course. Don't see many old women with beards, eh? Except my Auntie Parthenope, as I recall. No one's got a couple of balloons, have they? Why, sir? Said Tonka. A big bosom always gets a laugh, said Blouse. He looked round the row of faces. Not a good idea, perhaps. I got a huge round of applause as the widow trembler in "'Tis Pity She's a Tree." No? I think Igor could sew something a bit more, realistic, sir, said Polly. Really? Oh, well, if you really think so, said Blouse dejectedly. I'll just go and get myself into character. He disappeared into the building's only other room. After a few seconds, the rest of them heard him reciting, "Looks, my poor feet!" in various tones of fingernail screech. The squad went into a huddle. What was all that about? Said Tonka. He was talking about the theatre, said Maledict. What's that? An abomination unto Nuggan, of course, said the vampire. It'd take too long to explain, dear child. People pretending to be other people to tell a story in a huge room where the world is a different place. Other people sitting and watching them and eating chocolate. Very, very abominable. I saw a Punch and Judy show in the town once, said Shufty. Then they dragged the man away and it became an abomination. I remember that, said Polly. Crocodiles should not be seen to eat figures of authority, apparently, although until the puppet show no one in town knew what a crocodile was. The bit where the clown had beaten his wife had also constituted an abomination because he'd used a stick thicker than the regulation 1 inch. The lieutenant won't last a minute, you know, she said. Yes, but he won't listen, will he? Said Igorina. I'll do my best with my feather and needle to make a woman of him, but... Igorina, when it's you talking about this sort of thing, some very strange pictures turn up in my head, said Maledict. Sorry, said Igorina. Can you pray for him, Wazza? Said Polly. I think we're going to need a miracle here. Wazza obediently closed her eyes and folded her hands for a moment, and then said shyly, I'm afraid she says it will take more than a turkey. Waz? Said Polly. Do you really? Then she stopped with the bright little face watching her. Yes, I do, said Wazza. I really talk to the Duchess. Yeah, well, I used to too, snapped Tonka. I used to beg her once. That stupid face just stared and did nothing. She never stopped anything. All that stuff, all that stupid... The girl stopped, too many words blocking her brain. Anyway, why should she talk to you? Because I listen, said Wazza quietly. What does she say? Sometimes she just cries. She cries? Because there are so many things that people want, and she can't give them anything. Wazza gave them all one of her smiles that lit up the room. But everything will be fine when I am in the right place, she said. Well, that's all right then, Polly began, in that cloud of deep embarrassment that Wazza called up within her. Yeah, right, said Tonka. But I'm not praying to anyone, okay? Ever again. I don't like this, Waz. You're a decent kid, but I don't like the way you smile. She stopped. Oh, no. Polly stared at Wazza. Her face was thin at all angles, and the Duchess in the painting had looked, well, like an overfed turbot, but that now the smile, the actual smile... I'm not putting up with it, Tonka snarled. You stop that right now. I mean it. You're giving me the creeps. Oh, so you stop him smiling like that. Just calm down, all of you, Polly began. Bleeding well, shut up, said Jackram. Man can't hear himself chew. Look, you're all edgy. That happens. And Wazza here's just got a bit of religion before the fight. That happens too. And what you do is you save it all up for the enemy. Quiet and down. That is what we in the military call an order, okay? Perks? It was Blouse. You'd better hurry, said Maledict. His corset probably wants lacing. In fact, Blouse was sitting on what remained of a chair. Ah, Perks. A shave, please, he said. "Oh, I thought your hand was better, sir." Yes." Blouse looked awkward. "The problem, Perks, is I have never actually shaved myself at all, to be honest. I had a man to do it at school, and then, of course, in the army I shared a batman with Blitherskite, and those attempts I made on my own behalf have been somewhat bloody. I never really thought about it until I got to plots, and suddenly it was embarrassing." "Sorry about that, sir," said Polly. It was a strange old world. "Later on, perhaps you could give me a few tips," said Blouse. "You keep yourself beautifully shaven, I can't help noticing. General Frock would be pleased. He's very anti-whiskers, they say." "If you like, sir," said Polly. There was no getting out of it. She made a show of sharpening the razor. Perhaps she could manage it with only a few small cuts. "Do you think I should have a reddened nose?" said Blouse. "Probably, sir," said Polly. "Sarge knows about me, I'm sure," she thought. "I know he does. Why is he keeping quiet?" "Probably, Perks?" "What? Oh, no. Why a red nose, sir?" said Polly, applying the lather with vigour. "It would look more amusing, perhaps." "Not sure that's the purpose of the exercise, sir. Now, if you just lie back, sir." "There's something you should know about young Perks, sir." Polly actually yelped. Walking as silently as only a sergeant can, Jackram had stolen into the room. "Sergeant?" said Blouse. "Perks doesn't know how to shave a man, sir," said Jackram. "Give me the razor, Perks." "Doesn't know how to shave?" said Blouse. "No, sir. Perks lied to us. Right, Perks?" "All right, Sarge, no need to drag it out," sighed Polly. "Lieutenant, I'm underage," said Jackram. "Right, Perks. Only 14, aren't you?" He looked at Polly over the top of the lieutenant's head and winked. I told a lie to get enlisted, sir, yes," said Polly. "I don't think a lad like that ought to be dragged into the keep, however game he is," said Jackram. "And I don't think he's the only one. Right, Perks?" Oh, so that's the game. Blackmail, Polly thought. "Yes, Sarge," she said wearily. "Can't have a massacre of little lads, sir, now can we?" said Jackram. "I see your point, Sergeant," said the lieutenant, as Jackram gently drove the blade down his cheek. "That is a tricky one." "Best to call it a day, then," said Jackram. "On the other hand, Sergeant, I do know that you yourself joined up as a child," said Blouse. The blade stopped moving. "Well, it was all different in those," Jackram began. "You were 5 years old, apparently," the lieutenant went on. "You see, when I heard that I would be meeting you, a legend in the army, of course I had to look at our files so that I could perhaps make a few timely jokes in presenting you with your honourable discharge. You know, humorous little reminiscences about times gone by. Imagine how puzzled I was, therefore, to find that you appear to have been drawing actual wages for, well, it was a little hard to be certain, but possibly as much as 60 years. Polly had put a keen edge on the razor. It rested against the lieutenant's cheek. Polly thought about the murder, oh, all right, the killing of an escaping prisoner in the woods. "It won't be the first officer I've killed." "Probably one of them clerical errors, sir," said Jackram coldly. In the gloomy room, with moss now colonising the walls, the sergeant loomed large. An owl, perched on the chimney, gave a screech. It echoed down into the room. "In fact, no, Sergeant," said Blouse, apparently oblivious of the razor. Your package, Sergeant, had been tampered with on numerous occasions, once even by General Frock. He deducted 10 years from your age and signed the change. And he wasn't the only one. Frankly, Sergeant, I'm forced to only one conclusion. And what's that, sir? The razor halted again, still pressed against Blouse's neck. The silence seemed to last for some time, sharp and drawn out. That there was some other man called Jackram, said Blouse slowly, whose records have got mixed up with yours, and every attempt to sort it out by officers who were not entirely at home with figures only made it more confusing. The razor started to move again with silky smoothness. I think you've put your finger right on it, sir, said Jackram. I am going to write an explanatory note and add it to the packet, Blouse went on. It seems to me the sensible thing to do would be to ask you here and now how old you are. How old are you, Sergeant? 43, sir, said Jackram instantly. Polly looked up, expecting the generic thunderclap that ought to accompany such a universe-sized untruth. Are you sure? Said Blouse. 45, sir. The hardships of a soldier's life show up on a face, sir. Even so, I recall a couple of extra birthdays, what had slipped my memory, sir. I'm 47, sir. Still no rumble of celestial disapproval, Polly noticed. Yes, very well. After all, you should know, hey, Sergeant. I shall amend it. Thank you, sir. Just like General Frock did, and Major Galoche, and Colonel Leggin, Sergeant. Yes, sir. Clerical error has followed me around all the days of my life, sir. I've been a martyr to it. Jackram stood back. There we are, sir. Face as smooth as a baby's bum. Smooth is how things should be, eh, sir? I've always liked things smooth. They watched Lieutenant Blouse walk down through the trees to the path. They watched him join the erratic, straggling line of women on their way to the door. They listened for screams, and heard none. Does any woman sway that much? Said Wazza, peering through the bushes. Not legally, I think, said Polly, scanning the keep with the lieutenant's telescope. Well, we'll just have to wait for some sort of signal that he's okay. Somewhere overhead, a buzzard screamed. No, they'll have got him the moment he walked through the door, said Maledict. Bet on it. They left Jade on watch. With her paint scraped off, a troll could settle into rocky scenery so well that no one was likely to notice her before they'd walked into her, and by the time they'd walked into her, it was too late. They made their way back through the woods, and had almost reached the ruined farmhouse when it happened. You are holding up well, Mal, said Polly. Maybe those acorns did the trick? You haven't mentioned coffee at all. Maledict stopped and turned slowly. To Polly's horror, his face was suddenly shiny with sweat. You had to bring it up, didn't you? He said hoarsely. Oh, please no. I was holding on so tight. I was doing so well. He fell forward, but managed to get onto his hands and knees. Then he raised his head, and his eyes were glowing red. Fetch Igorina, he muttered, gasping. I know she's ready for this. Whop, 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 whop. Wazza was praying furiously. Maledict tried to stand up again, fell back onto his knees, and raised his arms imploringly to the sky. Get out of here while you still can, he mumbled as his teeth visibly lengthened. There was a shadow, a sense of movement, and the vampire slumped forward, stunned by an 8-ounce sack of coffee beans that had dropped out of a clear sky.
What a way to it.
I hope you caught Kitty's like massive shit-eating grin with like the. It's an amazing transformation, sir.
Such a great book.
I was trying really hard not to look at anybody during that whole scene because I was like, I am not going to be able to keep it together.
We actually clapped for you when you choked.
It's okay because you did it at a very plot appropriate moment where you were being Jack from trying not to laugh.
That's exactly, yeah, it's method acting.
Old war wound.
Fun.
Oh my fucking fun.
What's up, my darling?
Just so much fucking fun. I was waiting for the coffee to fall. I haven't read this, but I knew the Duchess was gonna get them coffee somehow. Or whatever the Duchess means.
Execute vibes.
Vibes.
Vibes did talk about helping them and something.
True. You'd have to say that to coffee.
Perhaps not the first person you would want to pray to.
Oh, I don't know. I think he'd make a pretty good god. Oh, crunch. Crunch, crunch, crunch.
Would you like me to rub your shoulders, Frankie?
What's up, my love?
Would you like me to rub your shoulders?
Yes, very much so. I'm a creaky bag of popcorn at the moment.
Oh. What you need is other Katie doing yoga to you.
You intrigue me strangely.
Yeah, it's Thai yoga massage.
I'm listening.
Come to Glasgow and I'll manipulate you.
Imagine having your clothes folded in intricate ways while you're wearing them.
Ooh.
That's basically what it is, yeah.
I'm imagining that. That sounds amazing. Yeah, please manipulate me. I would like that.
I love that you just swooned off screen when I was telling you that I would manipulate you. You're like, yes. Oh my god.
Wring me out like a washerwoman.
Oh.
It's getting a little bit steamy. Oh, right. Perhaps we better say goodbye to the catch-up crew because I keep forgetting to end the recording. So, has anyone here watched did anyone watch Friday's? Do we have a member of catch-up crew here from Friday? Has anybody?
I couldn't remember what happened, so I watched the end of it really quickly, and it worked really well.
Did you see the wave? Did you see everybody waving?
Yeah, it was really, really cool.
Yes. Okay, excellent. So let's do it again. Let's do it again. So hold on, I will get ready to stop down the recording. Everybody say goodbye to the catch-up crew.
Bye, catch-up crew.
Bye, catch-up crew.